Hello there everybody, how's it going? I am the Meister and welcome back to the Greater Timbukton region. In today's episode, guys, we are going to be continuing on construction of North Burton, or more specifically, the North Burton Peninsula. So in the last episode, I promised that I would release one more video before leaving on vacation and taking a little break from this series. So this is it, episode 29. Already episode 30 in the next episode. Wow, we're getting up there. So yeah, essentially what we're going to be focusing on in this episode is building much of the residential and small commercial areas around North Burton. So, you know, there's not going to be any high-rise buildings or anything like that. It's mostly going to be some, you know, mid-wealth to high-wealth construction in this specific episode. So what's interesting about this part of town is it's basically a transition between the old Victorian style architecture that you would find in old North American cities into the modern eclectic suburban subdivisions that you find in also most North American cities. So, you know, the North Burton Peninsula lies sort of between those two types of areas, so there's going to be a lot of intertwined different architectural styles. So it's going to be pretty interesting, I guess. So I did put a little bit of thought into how this area is built. So yeah, that's essentially a little rundown of what's going to happen in this episode here. So unfortunately, because I am on quite a tight schedule, I'm leaving on vacation next week. And, you know, I didn't really want to jump into some pretty big projects. I just sort of wanted to keep it simple for this episode. So unfortunately, I didn't quite make it as far as I wanted to in terms of, you know, completing the entire peninsula. That was sort of my plan at the start. But unfortunately, that's not going to pan out. But that's not a big deal. We'll just continue on where we left off in this episode in the next episode. So also what's kind of interesting about this entire district is I put a lot of thought into how the road layout looks. So if you look closer to downtown Burton, you'll have like this sort of grid layout that most older cities will have. And, you know, you sort of move into the more suburban subdivision kind of layout where you have like more curvy roads and it's less of a grid format. So that's sort of something that I planned around this entire area, and I made sure that it was properly demonstrated. And another thing is on the actual tip of the Northern Peninsula are going to be the richest citizens of Burton. So you're going to have like these little side roads, I guess these little private roads that go off to the side, and you'll have some very luxurious housing along the water here. So as I was saying just a minute ago, the area is going to have like these sort of squiggly little side streets on this big cliff here that will be home to, some of the more richer citizens of town. And this is precisely what I'm getting started on right now. So I did a little bit of research. Well, not research, but my definition of research is just looking around on Google Maps most of the time. But I found that, because this area is based on Halifax, I'm sort of studying a lot of the neighborhoods and stuff around town. And on the southern part of the peninsula, there's all these little side streets really close to the water where sort of most of the wealthiest citizens will live. So that's what I'm getting started on right now. And I'm starting by, plopping down the basic road layout, and then we're going to get into plopping down some houses. Unfortunately, however, there's not a lot of luxurious housing on the workshop. I found like a couple of big, huge mansions and stuff, but nothing of the style that I was looking for, like your sort of compact housing. So I sort of had to use a lot of the vanilla assets to build up this area, as well as these here. I think they were made by King Leno, if I'm not mistaken. I'm probably mistaken, but anyways, I found myself having to use a lot of those houses. I think there's only 3 of them, so I had to reuse a couple of them a few times. But I mean, zooming out of the area, everything looks really nice. And even with these vanilla buildings right here, it's not a problem whatsoever. They do look a little bit under textured, I suppose, or the texture style is a little different than a lot of the workshop assets. But that's okay. They don't look too bad until you start zooming in and it's like, okay, it's obviously a vanilla building, but if you blend them good enough into your environment, they really don't show that much. So what I mean by that is, like, you see like these more modern apartment buildings here, your sort of Eastern style apartments. They sort of blend into the area pretty good, and they make the vanilla assets pop out a little less. So I'm trying not to bore you guys too much with my endless plopping of houses and not much more. But what makes Timbukton so special is its sort of mundaneness, I find. So there's nothing really luxurious about Timbukton. There's nothing really extravagant. It's not New York. It's not LA. It's just your run-of-the-mill, Eastern United States or Eastern Canadian city. So I'm not trying to make it something that it's not. It's just a nice little city. But like I was saying, I think that's one of its more important characteristics. Now, what's actually pretty cool is that I was in Halifax last week for work, and I took a little bit of time to wander around in the city, and I tried to find any inspiration that I could incorporate into the series, and it was pretty fun because wandering around downtown, more specifically, I didn't wander around into any residential area whatsoever. But I actually stumbled upon some really cool stuff that I think I could base parts of Timbukton and even Burton off of. And part of this build here is actually based off of what I've seen in Halifax. I already started about half of this episode before going, but that's all right because I still incorporated part of it based on what I've seen. So most of the time I'll just do some exploring on Google Maps, but I think the advantage of going out in person, walking around town, is that you actually get the city vibe and you get to experience, what it's really like, walking in the streets and stuff, and the architecture and all the little details that you wouldn't normally notice on Google Maps. Even if you go down to Street View, of course you get like a perfect picture of what a normal person would see in a particular location. You still don't get that feel, because obviously the city's alive. There's cars and stuff moving, there's people walking around, there's all sorts of stuff happening at once, and being there in person sort of gives you a better idea, I guess sensically, if that's a word, of what's going on. So I think that's going to help me a little bit in developing Timbukton, because I can sort of base some areas off of my personal experiences. And also on that topic, when I leave for Southeast Asia, I think I might take some inspiration from that. I know it's a completely different architectural style whatsoever. Like, it's going to be, a different planet completely. But, there may be some little tricks and stuff that I may be able to take inspiration from for Timbukton. I think that it's pretty cool that I live so close to a place that I am developing in this game. Now, the reason is, let's say I would choose to build a city off of, I don't know, New York. Well, I've never been to New York, and I don't really have the opportunity to go whenever I want. Obviously, it's really far from me, and it's pretty expensive to go. It's not normally a place that I would have the opportunity to go just on a whim like that. But Halifax, I do, and even some other cities that I take inspiration from, such as St. John, New Brunswick, and I guess you could even say Portland, Maine. It's only I think a 6-hour drive for where I am, so it's not too far. Where I'm going with this is I can actually visit these cities pretty easily to take inspiration, right? So that's sort of an advantage on my end here, where I can sort of incorporate what I've seen into the series a little bit. So we're down to the last couple of minutes of the episode, and basically what's going to happen now is, now that I've plopped down all of the residential buildings, which are for the most part pretty heavily detailed on their own, I will add a little bit more detail in some particular areas, more specifically where the high-end or wealthy section is, as a lot of those buildings are vanilla and they don't contain a ton of detail as these houses right here do. So I'm just going to sweep over there and plop down some fences and add some trees and, maybe a swimming pool or two, just to make the area a little bit more realistic. So now what I'm going to start on is a little grocery store near the area that will sort of service the north part of the peninsula. Nothing too fancy. It took a little bit of tedious work and a couple of attempts to get everything to fit right. Because, obviously with the terrain difference, it can be quite challenging, especially when dealing with some larger buildings, and especially with these large parking lot roads here, which, they take up a lot of space, and sometimes they can be kind of awkward to work with. But I think I managed pretty good. So all in all, I mean, I'm decently satisfied with the way this entire area has panned out. However, I haven't really gone into as much detail as I would have liked. Obviously, because I'm sort of on a tight schedule, I would have liked to add a bit more detail when it came to the more luxurious part of town where the nice houses are. So in a couple of minutes here, I'm going to be adding some fences and some trees and stuff. But I think when I get back, I'm going to add a bit more detail to the area, such as, some bushes and rocks and some additional, little minute details to the faces of the cliff, just to make it look a little bit cleaner, I guess, and to make it look less vanilla-y. But it's not a huge deal. I'm not too upset about it. So with that all being done, that's going to pretty much conclude this episode. And I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget, I'm going to be away for about a month, maybe a month and a half, give or take. I'm not too sure yet. I don't have a precise date on when I'm going to start making videos again. But I am leaving for 2 weeks. So I'm planning on releasing this video on Saturday. So if you're watching this on Saturday, I'm leaving on Wednesday for my trip. And I'm going to be gone for 2.5 weeks, roughly. And it may be another 2 or 3 weeks before I'm going to plop down another episode. So we'll see. It might be sooner, it might be later. I'll see how I feel at that point in time. So with that being said, guys, just thank you so much for watching. And just bear with me. Please be patient. And we'll drop episode 30, and it'll feel like no time. Also, just to keep you guys a little bit excited, like I said, I'm going to be documenting my trip quite extensively, as much as I can. I bought some new camera equipment, a new microphone, the whole works. And I'm going to film whatever I have the opportunity to film on my trip. So I'm going to be sharing that on this channel, maybe doing some sort of little vlog or something. Not too sure what I'm going to do yet. But yeah, just to keep you guys on your toes, you can expect some pretty cool footage, I think, of my experiences. So next episode, guys, we're episode 30. Most likely what we're going to be getting into is finishing up on the North Burton Peninsula. It shouldn't be too long. I only have a couple of other sections to develop, so we're going to be doing that. And I'm going to leave it up to you guys what you want to see me do next. All right, so you guys have like a month to vote. So your choices are, number 1, your choice is to jump back into Timbukton and start the construction of the university. Or number 2, your choice is going to be developing the beach area around Burton. And this area I want to focus a little bit more time onto. I'm going to be adding quite a few detail. There's a whole bunch of beach props and stuff that have popped up on the workshop that I would like to try out. So those are going to be your 2 choices. We're either going to go back to Timbukton or the beach. So the choice is completely up to you guys. And like I said, you got a lot of time to vote. So with all that being said, guys, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe to the channel for much more content. And yeah, until the next episode, guys, please take care. And guys, one more thing. I have no idea what to do with this little piece of land here, so I want you guys to decide what will happen to it. A few things that I had in mind, but I wasn't too sure. One, it would be kind of cool to make some sort of abandoned old factory or something like that. Or maybe develop it into some modern, high-income housing, or maybe in some low-income housing. We can make maybe some green space out of it. It doesn't matter to me. I want to give you guys the choice on what's going to happen with this little piece of land here. Let me know what you think.